Today, we have somebody that I admire, building something I admire, Simon Kim.
You know, we're not the first creators to get a movie in theaters, but like to do it in the way we're doing it.
Internet cinema is coming, and it's not waiting for anyone. Hollywood had a 100-year head start, but the internet is starting to catch up.
So it's been a few years in the making of this film festival.
All these different creatives popping up their own studios, working on their own film projects, and realizing like, you know, I can just like go out and make things with a few friends, and there can actually be a path to like get that to get distributed. The best brands, they need to invest in telling their brand story at the highest level. Let's host this film festival. Like, what does it look like for the internet to have their own Sundance? We realized we have a great opportunity to tell a narrative of like, Hollywood's dying, that's what everyone's saying. So why are we building a film company?
What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Sweat Equity. Today, we have somebody that I admire, building something I admire, Simon Kim.
How's it going?
We typically don't do like large intros in here, but give people context, because one of the things as well is like, we always talk about like brand social, you know, and obviously we talk about the integration of creators, but I think what you are building and then how you're building and how it's centered around content is super important. But if you give an intro to yourself, what you're building, and then guns blazing into
Cool. Yeah, so my name is Simon. I run Creator Camp, also Camp Studios, and essentially we're on a mission to basically bring internet creators to the big screen. So build a bridge from, you know, just making videos in your bedroom to actually becoming a full-out filmmaker, putting things out there, whether it's getting films into theaters, whether it's doing your own theatrical tour. That's sort of the belief that we've championed, and we've kind of built this community of like artists, storytellers, creatives over the last 4 years of hosting events, and that's kind of led us to this point.
Very familiar with you, and I'd gone through like the mission and even like the Notion page months ago.
Oh, heck yeah.
And so like I'm reading it, and now I'm like piecing parts of it together, where I saw something recently where Sydney Sweeney's like last 4 films have been like haven't popped. I think it was her last 3-4 films.
Yeah, boxing one, yeah.
Right. And it was like, oh, it's one of the worst runs, etc. And it's not like it's a Sydney Sweeney error, it's a Hollywood error, right? And it's because Hollywood has changed so much. And even you look at how like a movie is promoted, it's typically in the past, like it'd be promoted very, very heavily. And now it's promoted, like there's sometimes I see a movie like 2 weeks before it goes out.
Yeah.
And I see one trailer, and like you don't build up kind of like the hype and the FOMO to like go and watch the thing. And it's just changed so much. And you guys are betting on like the restructuring of Hollywood. What does the restructuring of Hollywood look like?
I think over the past like 10 years, you've seen the decentralization of like basically every industry.
Yeah.
Whether that's like tech products coming along and disrupting. You see like these core players getting like broken up, whether it's like JP Morgan, now there's like Mercury, and there's like Carrot Banking, and there's all these different things. But I think Hollywood's the last one to go, and it's sort of like very resistant to that because it's just a highly gatekept industry. But our hope is like over the next, or what I believe to be true over the next like 50 years is like instead of one big Warner Brothers, there'll be like, you know, thousands of these micro studios where it's just a group of creatives coming together, just making, you know, their own feature films, because obviously the cost of production is going down, the cost of distribution and marketing is going down. And so that was sort of our bet, is like, how can we be the first people to kind of crack that? Or, you know, we're not the first creators to get a movie in theaters, but like to do it in the way we're doing it, and really champion that movement. But that's kind of how we see as this like internet cinema movement, right? It's like, it's not just for us, but it's like, okay, we're already seeing it now with like all these different creatives popping up their own studios, working on their own film projects, and realizing like, you know, I can just like go out and make things with a few friends, and there can actually be a path to like get that to get distributed. And so that's like how we see the future of Hollywood. It's more like the individuals, the small groups of creatives all across the world.
What if you were put in the inverse, and you had like one job of, I have to save Hollywood? How would you approach that? Would it be like kind of taking the same model that you're doing now and like?
Yeah, I think like also just giving, I mean, one of the fundamental issues that we found is like you have to invest so much into these projects. Like you have to invest like hundreds of millions. And I think giving more of that share of the pie to the creatives on set like is sort of a necessary thing, or giving more of those back end points to the creatives, I think is super necessary, because or else you're just incentivizing the budget to go up because everyone's getting paid out of the budget.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting take. I also think this, yeah, honestly, I have no clue, because I think there's so many issues the more we go along the lines. I think there needs to be more competition in the theatrical market, because right now, even for us to go out and like, hey, we want to get our movie into theaters, we had no idea how to do that. But a lot of these indie films might actually get people in seats, But the issue is like the big studios are basically gridlocking those theaters. Like, hey, we have
Really?
Wicked coming out. We're gonna need 3 weeks of your screens, or else like we're gonna pull that from you. We're gonna take 70% of the box office. And so I think there's not enough competition on the theatrical market where like in maybe like a town in Indiana, it's like actually this indie film might bring more people than Wicked to that theater, right? But there's no way for that indie film to even get to that theater. And so there's no competition in the market. And so I think that's something that
it's
has to be
monopolized.
solved. Yeah, it's basically
Heavily.
been like monopolized by like the bigger players. Because like a Disney can go to the small art house theater and be like, yo, like we're gonna play Moana 3 or whatever. And here's our demands. You need to give us this many screens. Give us this big cut. Or else we'll pull it from your theater. And that small theater needs Moana 3 to survive, to get people in seats. And so
My ass would be there. My daughter on a Moana.
Exactly.
I'm
There you
wearing
go.
a kick right now.
there you go. Yeah.
I can't listen to a damn song in the radio. Every time she gets in the car, it's Moana. I'm
No,
like, how
yeah.
far we'll go, or whatever the song.
So they have so much control in that market. And so I think hopefully part of like what this campaign with this last film does is like start to at least like encourage that conversation of like, we should be open to playing more things, that sort of thing.
So I didn't know that's how it was structured, though. Like, I didn't know that's how it happened, where Warner Brothers comes to X chains and it's probably like, we need X amount of time. And so then is your opportunity small windows where there's no movies?
Yeah. So for example, like the first, and a lot of indie movies do this as well. Like I don't think we're doing something like crazy fundamentally different than like a lot of indie movies in the past, right? But like for example, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, that the film by A24, like it took a whole year before it really went as wide as possible.
Yeah.
And so with this film, like it was really hard to get into theaters because we had to prove people, hey, all these social media views will end up converting into people actually showing up, which is like one of the least, you can't attribute that. So we did in 30 theaters November 14th. We did a whole roadshow before then to prove that there was like demand and momentum. We did 30 theaters December 5th, and now late January we were looking for like 100, 200 plus, because that's when, there isn't like a Moana 3 or something like that in theaters.
That is wild. I really did not know that structure. Where do you think the next Disney comes from?
The next Disney might not, I don't know if there'll be a next Disney, I guess is my take on it, right? It's like, will there be that big of a player that comes in the entertainment space that's so centralized in power, right? That's the question. Like going back to that original thing of like all these studios popping up, we know that the next Steven Spielberg is probably going to come from a YouTube channel, right? Or just like growing up making TikToks. But I don't know about the next Disney because I'm not sure if like something can get that big anymore, right? Like it might just have to be all these like little studios that
Or
are
is
like
it more like
mini
little
studios.
Disneys?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you think that those mini Disneys will come from multiple creators that like they build their own IP. They're building out like it started in their bedroom. It becomes a much bigger thing, but they're their own version of Disney.
Yeah, exactly.
That's super interesting. And I think you're seeing it now among some creators, right? Like who is I don't know if they just built a studio here. Is it Dude, what is it?
Dude Perfect?
Yeah. Don't they have like this ginormous studio where their whole premise too was like, we're going to build like a Disney, right? Disney-like studio. Now, what I think is interesting is in the Notion, you talked about the difference between like parasocial capital and the narrative capital.
Yeah.
Right. And the evolution that you see for creators and how creators can monetize. In one way, they can monetize via, hey, I built my audience. I'm going to launch a product that's one-sided. I'm going to launch Feastables. I'm going to launch a course. I'm going to launch XYZ thing. And I build that bridge. I launch my product. It's successful. Awesome. But then there's the narrative capital where it's like some of the most, successful things in the world when we're talking about content creation are these stories.
Yeah.
Right. Ironically we were getting a Summer Moon. Have you had Summer Moon by the way?
Yeah.
Goated. We were getting Summer Moon yesterday and me and this girl Tatum just happened to be talking about, I think I was talking about today's episode actually. And I was talking about like Harry Potter and the fact that it's driven billions and billions in revenue from like one person's story, from the book and then to the film. And like, there's this infinity where the people that grew up with the film, like have this relationship with it that you can't break. Like my wife when we went to London, she got like a little lightning bolt. Yeah. I almost got something, but I was like, I don't know if I could explain this one. But then you go in London and you see like how many people are lined up there's one of the stations, there's like a little area where they have a Harry Potter like cart going through the platform in 9 3/4, and then they have a bookstore. bro, everything had lines out the door.
Yeah.
It was just a regular like Tuesday, Wednesday. You know what I mean? And that all stems from one story. So can you break down for me how then you're thinking about like, okay, the next evolution that could be an even bigger stage for these creators is actually narrative capital versus a parasocial relationship?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because it comes back to like my personal experience and my co-founder's personal experience. Like I had grown up making videos on TikTok, grew an audience there, and then moved to YouTube. And that was when I was a full-time creator for the first time, like built an audience there. And a lot of it was off of trying to tell a narrative story and like document my life and kind of make a film out of it, right? And we began to realize that like, okay, first like something felt off. Like you're kind of like monetizing your life in this weird Truman Show-esque way. And then also realizing that there's less scale to it, right? Like for example, if you are to just lean on your parasocial relationship you have with your audience versus make a piece of IP, tell a story that can scale outside of yourself, like that's a much more sustainable path in our opinions and in my personal opinion than to continue to be on this hamster wheel. And I think a lot of what we built at camp is because we felt like we were on this brand deal hamster wheel of like, I don't know when the next brand deal is coming in. This is how I'm going to survive. You know, this is what I've been taught is the way to be a full-time creator. But I want to tell like really meaningful stories and I want to make films and that sort of thing. And so like, what is the mechanism to like make that a profitable thing or like make there be some structure for that to exist? And so a lot of it comes from like my own experience in creating and being like, this feels weird monetizing off the parasocial. But actually, again, to your point, like realizing like, wait a second, Harry Potter is like just a story that someone came up with that's not about J.K. Rowling. Like she never mentions herself, but she told a great story and that can scale way beyond what her personal brand could end up being.
What would you tell someone then if, because I'm in the same boat in a way, outside of like, let's disconnect me from the agency studio that we have. Mm-hmm. I make money as well from brand deals. And then we have Cut Theory, which is like a short form boot camp, which is, you know, in many ways, like it's parasocial. Like we created our audience, we monetize it via that course. But if I want to be on the other side where like I want to, because I'm honestly in the same boat. One of my larger goals is producing a movie. That's one of my bigger goals. I study it a lot and I want to do something there. But that's not going to happen overnight by any means, right? If I want to make it to the other side where it's like, okay, you're building out this a narrative relationship, where do I start? Where would you say, Alex, I think you should do 1 to 2 things, these 10 things, etc.
Yeah, I guess also peeling back, I think like we saw the first evolution of the creator economy, where it's like, okay, cool, you build this audience, and then you need to monetize it by building a business. Yeah. But we realized, at least in the niche that we were in, a lot of these artists, they're not going to be the ones that launch like this mobile network or this Feastables chocolate. Like it makes no sense. How can the art itself be sustainable? So I guess that's another point of like what led us to this moment. And I guess like to your point, that's what we're trying to create is more of that conversation or like that almost that path, right? And so like a lot of that comes in educating the theaters, educating the studios, doing it yourself, creating a case study. Like that's sort of what we're up to now. But I think the biggest thing is just start putting out more narrative work. Like just put it out there in the world. Because we like to say that YouTube is the next film festival now. Like people, like execs and people in studios who can potentially greenlight those projects, right? Or give you funding, whether you do it yourself or whether you want to partner in that way. Like they're going to find these stories on YouTube and be like, okay, that's IP that's tested. It obviously has an audience attached to it. Like if it has a significant amount of reach that people are like, okay, like this, it's like the Kane Pixels thing with the backrooms and how A24 picked that up. So I would say just like put more narrative work out there and just sort of start putting it online because then obviously like you know that you never know who's watching. And so I think YouTube as itself or like Instagram, all these social platforms are like the next film festival where you get discovered and that sort of thing.
To do that though, you have to tell good stories. And you're around an amazing level of creators from all sizes. Can you break down some storytelling like structure and spines and kind of frameworks that you guys have for putting together? Because I've watched a significant amount of your videos, Barron's, etc. Like I've watched a lot of the videos, even down to your guys' short form content. But most people that create short form content aren't good at long form or the narrative aspects, right? If I'm scripting something informational and it's it's about good content versus bad content, that is entirely different than something that's a narrative based where I'm like, fuck, I just turned 30 and you know what I'm saying? I'm like, and I'm going into like this story. how and where would you advise I start with actually putting together a good narrative that is interesting?
Yeah, I think first, like, it's interesting you're pointing about like short form to long form, because a lot of the folks that we've brought on that have done the best at short form like started on long form, because you build such a stronger like muscle towards like,
Yeah.
you know, if you can get 1 million people to pay attention to a 30-minute video about your life, then all of a sudden, like, obviously like 60 seconds becomes a lot easier. I think like, so it was funny because with the camp videos, we were stuck at a certain scale because we were almost a little too pretentious with our brand. It was like really pretty stuff, but we're like, wait a second, this is very inaccessible, right? And so that's when we started scripting out more of our stuff. And I guess like one of the frameworks we use is like, first just always looking at something and being like, why should I care? And like Baron actually gave us great advice. He's like, you know, people would care. You need to make people care about the characters, because then whatever the characters do, like, they'll end up paying attention. Yeah. And we're like, okay, one of the narratives is like, we're Camp Studios, we're trying to change the film industry, or we're trying to, you know, sell these tickets to this movie. But then the other like narrative on top of that is like, we're a bunch of 20-year-olds like in this old school building trying to make something happen, trying to change Hollywood, right? And like that's such a more compelling narrative, which is like more personal. And so I think always like peeling back to like the meta narrative, like one layer deeper of like, okay, but like really what is happening here? What do most people resonate with? I think that was really helpful for like a lot of stories. I think like personally, a lot of the early stuff I did on YouTube was really just like put the camera up and then go about my life for 3 months. And then I would feel some change in me and be like, okay, hold on, boom, I got something. Let me go back to that footage and like tell the story backwards. It was like a form of journaling. It was very like cathartic to go through that. So that's how I initially started, but
was there any structure to that when you would kind of reverse engineer, like if because there is a lot of, I mean, there's even a wave on the brand side where the founder is documenting the entire, right? Like you saw kind of Daniel Dallin, I think, launched this like new phase of vlogging, more cinematic, more narrative, where you are filming an entire week and then putting it into like a 10, 15-minute video where it's like obviously heavily inspired by Casey, but it is different. If somebody is doing that, how would you then look at it and say, hey, like, here's how you could structure it in a way where then it's not boring? Because I've done 2, and 2 is not a lot to, you know, 2 at-bats is not a lot. But I've done 2, and they both missed, right? But the way they were pieced together was sequential versus maybe, like, emotional, or, like, more narrative versus it just being like, hey, I did this on Monday, I did this on Tuesday. Like, I didn't centered around maybe like something that we were trying to accomplish and like, did we accomplish it or not? Like, how would you then look at my video as an example, and or anybody who's like filmed a week and then rip it apart to be like, hey, here's how you need to form it into something that somebody wants to pay attention to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think a lot of it comes down to the craft of it. I struggle to sometimes see the bigger picture because I love editing and I love getting into it, right? And so like even with the content, like I'm technically CMO and there are people under me and like they're working on the content, but I'd edit a lot of those short form videos you see, or I'd write a lot of them. Yeah, like be very involved, because the way my brain works is like, even when we work with these brands, I'm like thinking about the actual content itself. So I'm like very nut in that way. I think a lot of it comes down to like the editing, the pacing, like what are you making people feel, right? Like I think for me, it's more like in that nitty gritty of like actually being in the timeline and making those changes than to be like, here's the structure, the narrative, and that sort of thing. I think it's more of like a feeling thing there, at least for myself. Like I've never been able to sort of plan out something beforehand. I usually get in the edit and I have all this footage and I play a song that like makes me feel a certain way. And I'm like, okay, here we go, here it is. And so I'm sure there's something I can explain under that. I just haven't really examined it or gone deeper into like, okay, what is a strategy here? It's more of like, how do I feel and like, how fun is it? Because I feel like every creative has that moment where they're editing something. You probably had this a ton of times where you're like 2 a.m. and you're like freaking out. You're like, I'm the best. Like I just made this thing. It's dope. And maybe tomorrow morning you're like, nah, screw that. Yeah. But like in the moment you have that. And I think we're all chasing that feeling. And I think what I found is like when I feel that way about something, it always performs better. Some people are like, okay, the stuff I love like doesn't perform and like this. But for some reason, when I feel that in the edit, it's like that thing will do better. And so that's always what I follow. I'm very granular. So not very much like bigger narrative picture, more like in the actual edit itself.
We'll go granular in a second. What's funny is I remember a moment like that for me when I first did a hyperlapse.
Yeah.
And like I did a tutorial and then I remember I sort of got like in Barcelona and I was like, I was walking, you know, taking, like, having it perfectly set up, take a picture,
Yeah.
walk, right? And I did this for like ever. And I remember putting in Premiere, I'm like, okay, let's do this thing, let's follow the tutorial. And then it hit, and I put warp on it, and it was so smooth. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, I'm the best. Like,
Yeah,
we're gonna
exactly.
be like Beautiful
Yeah.
Destinations Part 2 over here. Like, yeah, I just remember that moment. I didn't know that you scripted a lot of the actual videos that are on your guys' page. Can you walk me through granularly that process? Let's take an idea, or if you want to take a video that you've already published in the past. Like,
Yeah.
I think one of your guys' top one is like, if Hollywood is dying, why?
Yeah.
are we
Right.
dying?
So that's when I wrote and edited.
Yeah.
And like we had a moment there. Shout out Caleb Shaw, one of my friends. Like he was in the office and he actually helped me like sound design it. But we were freaking out because that was the first time we did something where we were like, okay, we've been too pretentious with our brand. Let's go more direct, right?
Mhm.
And so I think how we broke that down was first like, what's the story here? What's really interesting? Like, I think when we first moved into that office, we met this lady Carrie. She's really nice. She actually, her and her husband founded Alamo Draft House, like a theater chain. And the first thing she asked us is, "Oh, you're a film company? Like, how do you have money?" Like, how, basically, like, it's her building we're renting out. And so that got me thinking, like, everyone associates film to, like, basically losing a bunch of money. And so there's an automatic tension there. And so we realized we have a great opportunity to tell a narrative of, like, you know, Hollywood's dying. That's what everyone's saying. So why are we building a film company? Like, that's a really, like, obvious question that anyone would kind of look at us and be like, what are you doing? Why aren't you building, like, a tech product? Why aren't you building whatever? And so I think it's playing the music, going through it, like realizing, okay, that's the biggest thing. Realizing that, okay, first we need to talk about the industry to set up like some of the problem. And then we always need to go into like our personal, like us, because obviously at the end of the day, if people care about the people, then they'll watch anything. And so you kind of set up this bigger picture. You talk about the issues with the industry, what we're seeing, that there's a lot of resonance with, because I think in Hollywood and in the film industry, there's a lot of like energy that's like pent up, right? Whether it's like animosity or just like feeling like there's opportunity, whatever it is, there's a lot of people that have opinions. And so we'd like address that. And then we go into like, we're Camp Studios, we're a group of these 20-year-olds trying to do this. And so that last part's more like building our personal narrative, right? But a lot of it also is like, okay, well, draft out that first thing, feel it out, and then like just rip it apart. Obviously, like you probably do this as well, where it's just like destroying the script. And then eventually we get to a place where it's like, okay, this makes sense. And then we were really hype about it. I remember like jumping up and down with everyone being like, yo, this is it. And
You were
so,
jumping up and down looking at the script?
looking at the video when we first put it
gotcha.
together. And I was
Okay,
like,
cool.
oh, this is crazy. And so that was a great feeling. And then like that video did well, probably because we felt that way towards it, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of breaking down some of the process there.
And then what about like pacing and delivery? And I mean, even in that video, I think there's like what's her name?
Christina.
Christina.
Yeah.
She has like a really good pause that she does on like the delivery of the first line. And I think there's like a crash zoom as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do you think about then those details of, okay, we have this line, how do we make it more dramatic?
Yeah.
How do we get someone's attention even more, right? Like if obviously those first 3 seconds are so important, like how do we create the most impact in those 3 seconds? How do you think about like those little small details?
I think it's just very intuitive, but like we're probably thinking about that subconsciously, but it's very much like running around, like here are this lines, like what is a shot here? And like it also helped that we were in that old school building, so we knew that it would look like a set and like it would be visually interesting wherever we went in that building. And so we kind of just like ran around with Christina and we're like, oh, this line feels weird, like what do you think about this? Or she was like helping write a lot of it too. And yeah, it was very much just run and gun, like impromptu. Probably some element of my head's like, okay, if we zoom in, have some motion, we'll do better, but I'm not really thinking that. It's just like more subconscious, I guess.
One thing that drives me crazy a little bit about my content is that it's 9 out of 10 times like stationary, right? Like it's always just talking head. You guys have mastered the ability to take what talking head is, like some kind of information that you're saying, but change where it's said, you know, or even changing like, if it's first starts straight on and then all of a sudden like the next line kind of naturally goes like this and then the next one goes like this, it's like it puts it in a way where it's so engaging. How do you think about that from a retention perspective and how important it is to content? And then how would you even, actually I'll make this a selfish question. How would you look at my content and be like, okay, cool, like you have a good set, how can I structure it in a way where I can add more motion, I could add more engaging elements between my points, etc.?
Yeah, I think like, so we're very inspired by like Cheetah Rajan, the guy that's doing the Virginia cabin. Like, I don't know if you've seen this,
No.
but he's like the GOAT. He kind of invented that format, I would say, where he's like documenting the story of him building a cabin in Virginia.
Oh.
You know that guy, like Wellness Retreat? And so we're like, okay, how do we do this, but in our way, right? So that was our first level of inspiration. And it's obviously like, okay, we have a set of rules. We need to shoot on like the Sony. We need to make it look good. We need to color grade. There was a lot of internal like conflict, honestly, at that time where it's like, this feels like we're playing the game too much, and so this whole like debate. But like we eventually landed on something in the middle, but very inspired by his work and kind of what he had put forward. So it was very easy to take that as inspiration. I would say for this space, like I think the main thing is like the instantly like most fun thing I think is like the fact that there's all those weights over there from your house, and I think even telling the story of that and like realizing the scale of like the place that I'm in and not feeling that in the video somehow, I think is like something interesting where it's like you could be like a crazy wide of you like standing on the railing or something.
For sure.
You know, and like showing more of like this space. I think, again, I keep going back to the gym because I think it's just so interesting having all the gym equipment there and the story behind that, right?
Yeah.
So I think people like any creative like dreams about having a space like this, right? And so I think capitalizing on that, sometimes it might be good to like go as wide as you can. I'm sure you've done videos like this. Like I haven't gone through everything, but like I think there would be some benefit to that because I think the space is just like so cool and like how you have it laid out, you know?
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's part of it is like we just got this like well built, and so naturally you're like that's the flashy baby, right? Like the flashy thing that I want to make content in. But at the same time, I swear to God, I watch you guys' videos all the time for references to be like, okay, like they're really in 3 spots, but it feels like they're in 15 different spots because they're changing maybe like the camera angle, et cetera. And like, I need to do that.
Yeah.
And then I look at like what you said, like I've thought about, okay, how can I do shots up there, coming out of the bathroom, right? Like there's so many ways I could add variables to the content that even like, because I see the sets, I'm attaching like content formats and ideas to sets.
Yeah.
And so I want to be able to like, okay, what are things I could do that add motion or just like that are engaging that I then maybe bring me into the set, and then when I'm in the set, like little other things that I can do to make it engaging. But I gotta figure that stuff out. And I think part of that too is like a lot of my content, because it's so information based, I get so stuck on the actual information that I'm gonna say that I don't think about the shot list or the storyboard, right? Of like, what if if I added like 5 things that made it a little bit more interesting, and that's maybe 20 extra minutes, it can make a world of a difference. Like that
100%.
could be the difference between 20,000 views and 250,000 views.
Yeah, I think like to Max, my co-founder's credit, and Chris, like, so we're somewhere in the summer. I think I was like in Australia. We'd taken a month off after the festival and like our event series afterwards. And like they had sent me a text and they were looking for like an office space. So like, okay, cool. Like they're like, Max is like the space guy. Like he's always on Zillow, just like searching like on the toilet. Like that's what he does. And like he found our house that we lived in last year. So I'm like, I trust his curation.
Yeah, I trust him.
Yeah, exactly. And so then I come back and they're like, we got it. I'm like, what do you mean? And at first I was like, dude, we're not spending all this money on this, like friggin' this, like whatever. We don't need this. But then also being able to see it as an investment in like the videos we make and like telling that story, like a lot of people would get on calls with us and be like, oh, you're the guys that are in that old school building. And it's like, maybe they saw a few things, maybe they don't even remember what we said, but they at least remember that as a set. And so I'm like, okay, like that investment isn't purely just a space investment. Now it's like the content. I'm sure that's how you think about this place as well, right? But like that was cool too, because like I don't know if I alone would have been able to have the balls to just pull the trigger on that, but that's sort of what they're thinking through as well. And all of us are creators ourselves, so we're kind of always like, thinking about that sort of thing.
Dude, yeah, I was nervous for like the 3 weeks before I pulled the trigger on this.
Yeah, it's scary. It's very
so
scary. Yeah,
everything's 3-year lease, and I'm like, okay, like that's a big commitment. And then it's always, things work out in funny ways where I was listening to someone who's like, if something is making you very uncomfortable, but it feels right, it's probably right.
Yeah. How do you feel about it now, like being in the space, building it out?
Very right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From 2 ends. On the business side, as in like with the clients we work with, we've had this psych wall for probably 2 weeks, bro. We've probably shot in it like 8 out of those 14 days.
That's sick.
And like built and some days had like multiple shoots. Like the team was here shooting in the morning. Then they shot something, I think like midday for a completely different brand. And then at night did a photo shoot in it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like we're making...
That already pays back. Yeah.
And then on my end, I'm able to churn out more content and better content that I'm more proud of because of the set. Yeah. As much as like I like the green screen videos, anybody can make them. right? Like I could make a video that goes viral today, and then like the next person takes my information, does the same green screen video.
Yeah.
They can't replicate the set. They can't replicate if I'm in here moving around, like doing a storyboard and a shot list, and like, you know, working with McCoy or working with Charles on like making the best video possible. They can't replicate that, or it's going to take a lot for them to replicate it, and that friction is going to cause them not to replicate it.
Yeah.
And so like that investment and that thought process to me was big as well. It was like, okay, I'm going to do things in here that people aren't willing to do. It's very easy to copy somebody. It's very easy to be like, to just rip information or rip a style that, you know, is not hard to do. But it takes a lot more effort to be like, yo, I'm about to drop $1,500 just to build out a set.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for an idea that might flop, you know what I mean? Like about like this whole lab area for like a specific set that we're doing, it might flop. But I'm excited about the idea, which I think is like the fun part. You know what I mean? To be excited about the idea and to come in here and try to make an amazing piece of content. So to me, looking back at it, you know, looking back at the last 2 months, like the best thing.
Yeah.
And then once I have the gym in here too, like fully set up and like put in a place where I lift and the team lifts, like that's when it's going to be.
Yeah, that's like, this is a dream. This is like what you drew. Like having a space like this, right? You have the gym,
love it.
You know, like you have everything, like you have the psych wall. So it's like,
I love it.
you know, that's like, and I think leaning into that as like a narrative is like so strong, because it's like, you know, everyone wants a space like this at the end of the day.
The follow along series I've been brainstorming on is like, watch us take our creative studio from 7 figures to 8 figures. And then like it almost being like a reality show in here.
Yeah. I like that. Like,
and
like
I think that
sort
would
of
be
like,
cool because it's like,
yeah.
at that point you're following along. I would share the numbers. I'll share what we're doing, how we're scaling our growth, you know, the things that we're up to, and like how we're investing into the space and into the team and into the equipment, et cetera. Like I think that could be, I think it'd be interesting.
Definitely. We had this like bit going, because like, oh, it's so funny. My co-founder Chris, he has the Steve Jobs book, like the Walter Isaacson one, and we all have that book, right? And so he was reading it, and then he'd make this inside joke where he'd like carry it everywhere he went. So like he'd be in New York and he'd be like, take a look, and he'd like whip out Steve Jobs' face, and then eventually, like, I don't know what happened to that book. I think we were on the tour, and like one of our friends, Cody, like he accidentally ripped it, and it was like this whole like traumatic experience. But it became like an inside joke for the team. And then one of the things we did is we bought the Elon Musk book, and like it showed up to the Walter Isaacson one, and we had that in the office, and it just became such an inside joke with like one of our interns at the time, Sam. And so we almost made it like a little bit in some of our videos where we had it in the background and stuff like that. And like when you have a space like that and you have recurring characters, it's like almost a show.
Yeah.
And you know, like the funny inside jokes, like, and it was just funny for us. And like, I'm sure, like, I think that's the benefit of having like a recurring space, is like you can kind of build that world around it where it feels kind of like, I'm not sure if you're a big fan of Yes Theory, but like I was a huge fan. And like the first time I went to the Yes House, I'm like, holy crap, like I've seen this, and like, you know, and so there's something to that where you can build like this world in this space.
Did you know BPN, Bear Performance?
Yeah.
Nick Bear. I just went to their facility on Wednesday, and it was kind of that moment of like, okay, I've been following you guys forever. You guys have been putting out like cinematic masterpieces from a brand.
Dude, the half Ironman, or not the half.
Yeah.
I'm running a half Ironman, so I've been watching the full Ironman training series from Nick Bear.
It's crazy.
And like, it's so beautifully done. Like those videos are crazy, dude.
They're crazy. I don't know if you saw, and I'm going to actually dive into this a bit, but like, if you saw the one called Surrender, did you see that?
Is that where he's just running like one straight?
No, it's like the people competing against each other. It was a race that they just had. You should watch that. That is like an hour and 30 minutes. They actually premiered it at a movie theater.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
and it was a whole thing. They sold out all tickets for it. Like,
wow, that's awesome. Yeah,
sick.
that's great.
But it was a cinematic masterpiece. And actually, I'll segue now. I think I just did a podcast episode with, I don't know if you know Tate and Brandt is, but with Tate and Brandt, and we talked about 2026 brand predictions. You know, it was 2026 brand predictions to build a cult following. One of the ones I put on there is brands are going to start making movies, because I wholeheartedly believe that. I think BPN's a great example of it. You should watch that film that I'll send it to you, called Surrender, where they held this race called the Last Man Standing race, where it was like 4-mile loop every hour until somebody gives up, until there's only one person like standing.
Oh, I've heard of this. I saw a Buy Maximize like reel on Instagram that was about it. Yeah.
And so it was a crazy event where basically everybody there was 50 runners, I think. Everybody gave up at like max 120 miles. And then there were these 2 kids like in their early 20s
Wow.
that they kept going, bro. And they kept going until 240 miles.
Wow.
And then they got rained out. Like there was weather and
Dude, that's
stuff. But the whole thing was like two parts. They went live during the entire thing. So like you got to actually see it unfold, right? Which was huge. And then the content team was also focused on, hey, we know we're gonna make a doc on this, like we're gonna make a movie about this. And they did, and it was literally a cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah.
I think from an Infinity side, when you look at what you're referencing of like these narrative relationships or this narrative capital, a brand like BPN has so much affinity because they literally have like hundreds and hundreds of short films and like movies around the brand that when you buy product, bro, like there's no convincing factor.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
such a different relationship where I don't look at price. I'm not trying to have the landing page convert me. I'm
Yeah.
converted. I was converted. You know what I'm saying? Like and that's like it's like that for a few brands. It used to be like that for me with Nike, because Nike would put out like these amazing commercials and you'd feel such a type of way about the commercials where like, and they weren't doing movies, but you'd feel such a type of way where we're just gonna buy the thing. And I think like it even happened with The Last Dance, like the Netflix documentary. I don't know if have you watched that?
Yeah. I've seen that.
It was like, if you look at how Jordan shoes spiked after The Last Dance, it was crazy because it's like, bro, they just watched.
I mean, that doc was like, I
Yeah,
was
crazy.
so hyped up at
Best
it, you
doc.
know?
Best doc.
Like,
It's always like
players.
my background doc.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so
dude.
good. But it was like 10, 45-minute episodes of just like beautiful cinematic, like masterpiece. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, do you think more brands are going to be making films?
Yeah, 100%. They're already trying to do it with some of the microdrama stuff, like on short form. I think like, and that's sort of like why like now my role is like CMO, so I was leading the marketing and all the content, and now I'm shifting more towards like building out this back end agency around camp because like
Oh, interesting.
a lot of brands have come to us for certain things, and we're like, well, we can go build a team and go do this thing for you, and then come back to like the main thing. But then we're realizing like, I don't know, and a lot of these startups and brands aren't recognizing this yet, which is kind of frustrating, but like, as these tools evolve, as AI evolves, like the differentiating factor is going to be storytelling.
Yes.
So it's like, you need to invest in that. And like, yeah, you can explain it to these folks like, oh, like good brand, like lowest CAC over time, whatever, like that sort of thing. But like, I think the stickiness of products in the future for consumers will depend on like how good the storytelling team is, or how good like again, BPN's doing a great job at that. Like when I'm training for this thing now, I'm just going to use like BPN subs. Like it's obvious now, right? And so I definitely think they are. I think they have to, like the best brands, they need to invest in telling their brand story at the highest level, because that's going to be one of the only like moats in the future, I believe.
I agree too. I was listening to something from a Founders podcast. I don't know if you were listening.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like the founder of Red Bull was talking about Red Bull as a company. They're like, we're not an energy drink, we're a marketing conglomerate.
Yeah.
He's like, we are literally a production team. Like we are putting on movies for our customers around like the idea of Red Bull, right? Red Bull gives you wings. Our movies are going to be like the process and the showing of you getting those wings.
Yeah.
And I just think there's such a relationship between long form content and like cinematic content to then a consumer being like diehard fan forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the same way with Harry Potter, it's like people watch, and I know that's an extreme example, but you can do it for Marvel, you could do it for Star Wars, you could do it for Harry Potter, you could do it, I mean, even for smaller movies that people like Rocky's huge, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's still even smaller movies that, you know, even if you're not building the next Star Wars, there's a small set of Star Wars or an idea that's like a smaller version of Star Wars that's going to pop and have like this diehard audience that you can make a lot of money from, or you're going to have a diehard audience from. And like, I think too, with where social and content is going and like the way we consume, we are picking the brands that we identify with from like a value perspective. Yeah. You know, like we're not just buying a shirt anymore because it's cool. It's like, no, I feel a specific kind of way about this in life around like these kinds of values. This is how I live my life, whatever. And so therefore I take these supplements, right? Or I buy this shirt, or I buy this hat. And that, I don't think there's many things that could influence it that more than long form.
100%. That's the coolest thing though too, to be able to like, I've been thinking a lot of this because I just went home to Michigan, and like it's a very different environment. Like it's very like chill, like Midwest, like all my friends are kind of working their traditional jobs, that sort of thing. And people love Michigan football. Like I grew up a Michigan football fan, right? Like people are diehard Michigan football fans. And it made me realize like there's not a lot of things you grow up and like really care about. Like outside like your family, your friends, maybe like you work the same job, whatnot for a long period of time. But like I think the coolest thing about telling stories is like you can create things that people care about in that way. Like a lot of people go to Michigan football games and it like gives their life so much meaning
Yeah.
because it's like something to look forward to, something to talk about, something to, you know, consume content about, like kind of be in this community. In the same way like Harry Potter and that sort of thing. And I think like that's what I find exciting is like when you tell stories, you can create things that people see themselves in and
Yeah.
actually care about. Because if you think about the amount of things you're going to care about for the rest of your life, it might not be a lot of different things, which is a kind of like a sad thing to realize. And so I've been tinkering with that idea. It's not like fully fleshed out, but I think there's something there where I'm like I care about that story of Michael Jordan, watching that doc, and like it means something to me, and like that's super special, you know?
100%. I think the stories extend the life cycle of the things you care about,
Yeah.
you know, drastically. I read a study, I think this was last year, where if I wanted to buy a piece of furniture, right, and I go to IKEA and I buy that thing and I buy a piece of furniture for my house, it's like, cool, I bought that piece of furniture, nothing special about it. I don't care if it gets dinged up, hurt, even if it costs $1,000, right? $2,000. It's like, it happened. If I go to a garage sale and I start talking to someone and they're like, oh, it hurts me to like sell this, but I need to sell it because it's passed down from my great grandpa to the grandpa to my dad and now me, and like I'm the one that now has it. You will cherish that and value that so much more than the thing that you got just because of the story that's attached to it.
Yeah.
And when you start thinking about it through that perspective, and then as like a founder and you're launching a product or whatever, and you think about like the idea of investing in brand, this is brand. It's like there's a story attached to this product, right? Like there is something here that I associate with that is so powerful that like I'm always going to choose this product. And that is a very, very impactful thing. Very, very impactful thing.
100%, 100%. I've been thinking about the idea of like artists, but then also thinking about like in that BPN example, for example, like you're making the best films about these athletes and then you end up having these diehard fans that become beacons for other athletes, and then you just kind of like compound on that. In the same way, I've been thinking a lot about like a lot of these brands that want to appeal to like creators and creatives and artists and that sort of thing. And just realizing like you kind of have to be more gentle when it comes to like the artists of the world, because they are the signal. Like when it comes to like what is cool, how is culture? You can't really buy culture, right? But these folks who are like maybe harder to work with, that are like more of these creators that won't sell out or anything like that, to sort of cater to those folks in a way that isn't like, okay, we're gonna pay you this much to do this. Like, hey, actually go out and do something crazy, super creative, right? Like you can kind of like make this ecosystem where it's like you have these artists who like revere your brand and help build your brand up because they are the signal for culture of like what is cool, you know? And so I'm thinking a lot about that as well.
Tell me more about actually work that you guys have done and produced. So I know we were talking about this before, but you guys did something with Baron, American Baron, where you guys launched basically a film in less than 100 days. I don't want to spoil the details. Walk me through that, because that seems, let me give context. For anybody that's listening, doesn't produce a lot of content. Sometimes it takes us 45 days to put together a short form series, from like casting, logistics, the settings, the scripting, the shot list, and even for like a big campaign, it could take us, that's going to be like maybe 18 pieces of content. Could take us 100 days.
Yeah, 100 really.
You know what I'm saying? Like 120 days, something along those lines. You guys put something together, a movie for that, you know?
Yeah.
In 100 days. Walk me through that process. How much should it cost? How much do you think it's going to return for Baron? Like how is it beneficial to him as well? Like walk me through that.
Yeah, so Creator Camp started as a series of events. So it was sort of myself like taking a gap year from college and like being like, shit, like I'm super lonely. Where are the other creatives that like think in this vein of like not optimizing for the algorithm, but like making meaningful stuff? And so we went on this journey of like bringing together these creatives, artists, musicians through these series of events, basically building at break even, but realizing like there's something here, there's something special. That's where we met Baron, was through one of our events. And that's where Baron met Caroline, co-writer, co-lead at one of the events.
Wow.
And we realized, okay, like we're going to host this film festival, because we realized like where this is going. A lot of these creatives, like the events are cool, but like, what do we work on now? And we thought one of the cool things was like, these people are making stuff on like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube that are like really, really good. Like they could live on the big screen. And so that kind of got us thinking, okay, let's host this film festival. Like, what does it look like for the internet to have their own Sundance? And there's like this, we felt this like overlap, this niche of people that like really cared about like the Gawks or the Natalie Lyns or these like storytellers on YouTube. Like they wanted to be somewhere. And so we made a film festival for them. And part of it was like, hey, we have 100 days. We're going to pick a cohort of folks and we're going to give them funding. And Baron, we actually told him like a month before, we're like, we might want to do a feature film with you at some point, because that's when the idea of like being a film studio popped up. But he hadn't worked on it, and we're like, okay, screw it. You're going to be part of the cohort. All these 9 people are going to make a short film, and then you're going to make a feature film. And so the 9 short films we gave them, I think it was like 10 to 15,000 each. And there's just like short film projects, like, 20 minutes long. And then Baron, we gave him $100,000 budget to go out and make this thing. And yeah, it was a crazy process. Like, they wrote it in 12 days, just him and Caroline just riffing. And these are like the most talented folks I've ever met. So I think I was just very trusting in that process. All of us were. But like literally they were riffing and coming up with the movie while the person, Owen, our friend who's scoring the movie, is scoring them riffing and doing these bits, because he doesn't have enough time to score it after he gets all of it, because we won't have enough time in post. So he's like live scoring them, like creating these lines. And it was just a very crazy process. I think like it was move fast, break things. Definitely. There's definitely a lot of things we could have done better, but it was done out of the spirit of like, okay, you're an internet creator, you can move fast. That's the whole point. Like you can create these ideas really quickly. And so it was shot by our friend Ethan, who's also a creator. JT was AC. He's also a creator. It was created purposely. I think there are only like 4 different locations so that we could like shoot it reliably within that time frame on that budget. And so we just like went for it. And it was like, I know a few days, like there's no official script to this day. Like it's just scattered across different docs. But it came together, and like, I think it was a great point. I was talking with Baron where it's like, it's not National Geographic quality. They're like warbles and like wobbles in the camera room and that sort of thing. It's not locked off all the time. Sometimes it goes out of focus, but their writing, the writing being the backbone, they're such great writers, and the story like has really impacted people in a positive way. And so, yeah, I think that's sort of how it came to life. It was very just thrown together.
I mean, one crazy, I saw here, it sold out 150K world premiere.
Yeah, that was in Austin for the film festival. So that was like part of like all those short films we had. Baron sold out like 150K of tickets, people flying in from Austin, which was insane.
Made your investment back.
Yeah. So it was great just having that as like the place to kick it off, right?
And then now that I know the next layer of it is you guys are going to go into US theaters and do a whole tour.
Yeah.
Right? With it estimating, I think it says targeting 5 to 10 million in revenue across all theaters and streaming.
Yeah.
If that happens, which I believe in you guys that it will, that's a huge return.
Definitely. Yeah. I think so.
Turning 100K into 5-10 mils.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of like narrative, right? Like, and also understanding that like the theatrical windowing system is like very good at, it's still good. Like the way Hollywood works of like, you put it in theaters first. And you build the groundswell of the buzz, you put it in more theaters, you get it out there, and then you have the window onto like a streamer or that sort of thing. That business model is actually like really good at making money. And you think about it from a perspective of like why I want to go into theaters is first like, ticket sales versus like CPMs online or advertising dollars is like much different. But then also like culturally, like we only have so many marketing resources ourselves to like push out, but the word of mouth actually we're starting to feel a little bit, which has been great. So yeah, the biggest launch will be January 23rd, where we're targeting like 500 plus theaters across the US, also like Australia, I think like UK, Berlin, Paris. And so that's when we go as wide as possible. So we created a map where we had people pin their location of like where they are and where they want to watch the movie. That way we could go to the theaters and be like, hey, I know we're like unconventional. I know we're not spending millions on marketing this, but we have 100, 200 people in your city that said they want to watch this. And so we sort of have to build things like that. Yeah, that's working so far. Like everywhere we've gone where that has a lot of pins, like it'll sell out. So those first like 30 theaters and the 30 theaters again have all sold out, which has been
huge.
Really awesome.
Congrats.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been really cool.
That's amazing. Walk me through, because I already know 2026 is going to be huge. If you guys have done some of these things in this year, walk me through, what does the vision for you guys look like 2026? I know you're probably in 2026 planning right now.
Yeah.
And in the fun of it too, right? Like it's so fun to look at, this is what we're going to achieve. Here's how we're going to achieve it. Walk me through that.
Yeah. So 2026, I think for the most part, like obviously the first thing is going to be like the film tour, potentially getting like distribution and streaming, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
figuring that out. The thing about indie films is like there's a film called Hundreds of Beavers. That's a good case study that we based a lot of this off of. They spent 100 something K, and then I think they did like 1 to 2 million in the box office, and they just kept going. And we realized a lot of these indie films, like you can kind of just be like, hey, we're in 100 theaters this weekend, or you scale down and scale up. It's very different than your traditional like, yo, we have this opening worldwide release and then it's in theaters for a month, then it's going somewhere else. Like indie films operate on a different timeline, which is great. So we'll probably do that widest release and then still like do some stuff with the film. And then I think for us is like building out more, even more like IP film projects, potentially doing another film festival. Because I think like we just want to be the center of this movement of like showing creators that, hey, you can get your work on a big screen. And I think that's like really core to us. And another thing is obviously like building out the back end, the agency, that sort of thing. And so we have like events, film, and then like commercial projects. And that's sort of like the ecosystem
What's
there.
the commercial project side of it?
That's sort of like, we do like one-off launch videos, campaigns.
Sick.
We did stuff with Spotify, Notion, that sort of thing. Run organic social for brands, that sort of
Sick.
thing. And so, because we realized like we're really good at doing these like really big things where it's like, we'll take 100 creators to Switzerland and we'll work our asses off for like a year. And then it's like this massive crash. And there's just like spike in revenue, spike in like morale. But then we're like, okay, how do you build a more like
Something sustainable,
right? Yeah.
And
so a lot of
fun, a lot of
yeah, exactly. It's like a lot of this film, we put so much of like everything we had into it. And we're like, okay, how nice would it be if like it was just a side project? We're like, okay, like, you know, we don't need to push that hard, that sort of thing, or we don't need to risk everything on, right? And so want to build that out. And also a lot of like creators in our community, they want to direct and write and stuff, but you don't go from that to straight to a feature film. Like you could go to like directing, commercial, that sort of thing, then scale up. But yeah, those are the three sort of buckets.
That's exciting, man.
We're working on. Yeah,
that's exciting, man. I appreciate you big time for coming on.
Dude, thanks for having me.
I could literally go for another hour. The problem is I have meetings stacked to the fucking brim today.
Yeah.
If not, I'd cancel them. And if they weren't onboarding calls, I would cancel them and just stay here.
No, I appreciate that.
But the fact that you're in Austin now, we will run this
100%
back
link
often. And I think we'll bring Brian in. And if you want to bring your co-founders, we could do like a big round.
Yeah, that'd be cool, dude.
Sick.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if this cyc wall's big enough. Maybe we'll figure it out.
Work. Yeah.
But like,
and if you guys want to shoot in the school, like let us know. Like 100%. We have full access at any point. Like it's really chill. So
thank you. Plug yourself though. Plug everything that you're doing. Plug your socials. Plug Creator Camp, etc. Plug everything, please.
Cool. Creator Camp, Simon Kim at Simon Kim on Instagram, YouTube, that sort of thing. And yeah, we're doing the thing. So check us out.
Doing the thing. Follow them. Support them. If they hit a theater in Austin or wherever you are.
Yeah, twosleepypeople.com. That's where you can check where the film's going next. So drop a pin.
Hell yeah. Thanks for coming on, bro.
Appreciate it, dude.
Thank you.
Heck yeah.